familiar territory. Houston. 4 o'clock Saturday playoff game, wild card weekend. Set your watch to it. They've made the playoffs 7 times. They have played the early Saturday game 7 times. That's their familiar territory. For the Steelers, familiar territory is this. Find a way into the playoffs, be a huge dog. Everyone expects you to get rolled in round 1. Sadly, that has become Steelers' familiar territory. Ahead of schedule, a couple rookie quarterbacks. Both teams projected to win 5.5 games this year. Only one person in sports media bold enough to pick either of these teams to make the playoffs. Coach Mangini with Washington. Well done, Coach. So even if they both lose in round 1, and I anticipate they both will lose in round 1, they are definitively ahead of schedule, which oddly puts them in a better position than these two teams ahead of them, who are now actually behind schedule. So the Chargers' schedule is more, this is year 5 for Justin Herbert, and he still doesn't have a playoff one. Now he can get that this week, and this year has been good, but the overall schedule for him, that's not where we thought it would be. 3 coaches before his first playoff win. For the Packers, last year, they were the 7 seed, lost in round 2. This year, they're the 7th seed, and I think well, I guess Brew doesn't, but a lot of people think they're going to lose in round 1. So, again, really good years for both these teams. The Chargers are probably going to end up feeling better about it, but the Packers went into this season not thinking we're going to be in the exact same spot we were in last year, where we're the last team in the NFC playoffs, and that's the spot they find themselves in. Quarterback makes me confident. Baker and Matt Stafford. You go into these playoff games for both these teams. Both of them, by the way, get to be at home because they won their soft-ish divisions. And you feel like they're going to be able to be in any game they play this postseason because you know the quarterback has a 4-touchdown, 300-yard game in him. Now, for Stafford, they scored 44 against Buffalo and then scored 44 combined in their next 3 games, but they went 3-0 because the defense was excellent. Baker, Week 18 was almost a perfect Baker performance where first 2.5 quarters, it's like, are they really going to blow this? Where all they have to do is beat the Saints and make the playoffs? And then Baker was absolutely sensational late. I believe in both these quarterbacks, which is a little different than the next row. Quarterback makes me nervous. Darnold and Lamar, between the two of them, 1 quality playoff win, 2 total playoff wins, really good rosters. Both of these teams absolutely have the resume and had the regular season of a team that can make the Super Bowl. But if I'm being totally honest, going into this postseason, even the biggest Ravens and Vikings fans are at least a little nervous. What quarterback are we going to get once the playoffs begin? New coaching model? Question mark. So you guys remember 6, 7 years ago? Sean McVay takes the world by storm. Boy genius, quarterback whisperer. You know what I mean? He's 30 years old, doesn't matter. Takes the Jared Goff and the Rams, hottest offense in football, and all of a sudden, everyone who works with Sean McVay becomes a head coach. And then after that, it's everyone who once worked with Sean McVay became a head coach. Then it's everyone who kind of reminds you of Sean McVay becomes a head coach. Is that same thing going to happen with Dan Campbell? You know what you're hearing a lot less this offseason? Is about quarterback whisperer. You know what you're hearing more about? Leader of men. We need someone to run a program. In fact, the only quarterback whisperer that seems to be really in vogue is from Dan Campbell's coaching staff in Ben Johnson. He might lose both his coordinators, and then you might see Mike Vrabel be the hot candidate and other guys because they remind you of Dan Campbell and how well that has worked. Different type of history. So the Eagles could have chased Eric Dickerson history. Instead, they are chasing a different type of history, which is maybe the first team ever to win a Super Bowl coming off a supernatural funk. I've checked Football Reference. It's not anywhere else. A team that went to a Super Bowl, kept the same coach, lost it, kept the same coach and quarterback. The next year had a disastrous end of the year, kept the same coach and quarterback. The next year went back and actually avenged the previous 2 seasons. And Saquon, by the way, still does have a chance for the most rushing yards in a full NFL season, playoffs and regular season. Needs about 450 to do that. Familiar territory. Same story seemingly every year. The Buffalo Bills at the end of the season are one of the top 3 or 4 Super Bowl favorites. Josh Allen is one of the top 3 or 4, this year probably number 1 MVP candidate. They didn't have quite a good enough regular season to get a bye, but they are huge favorites in round 1 and look like a team that absolutely can, at the very least, make the conference championship game, if not win the Super Bowl. See if this year's different. And then at the very top of the tiers, only one more practice left. As you guys all know, the Chiefs season starts in the AFC Championship game. It's a 2-game season. Well, you hope it's a 2-game season. They go 0-1, it's a disaster of a season. They go 1-1, it's a mediocre season. They go 2-0, they get to host a parade that we go to. So that means they have to get through one more practice, which is the divisional round of the playoffs, where they're, of course, 6-0 under Patrick Mahomes, and then the actual season begins.
Okay. You know what's funny? People actually believe that. You hear random fans actually, So, yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's nothing like wrong with this list. I mean, at this point, when you're talking about playoffs teams and stuff like that, it's everything's so twisted and crazy. And, the reality is that I want to put so many teams in just, 1 or 2 tiers. That's how my mind works. That is really what I like to do. When I did this for the herd with herd hierarchy, I just put them in 2 tiers. Essentially, I put 5 and 5, 5 in one tier and 5 in the other. Although obviously a couple of the playoff teams were left off of Colin's top 10. And so just for fun, I figured I'd do it a little bit differently here, just to kind of back myself into a corner. But there's a couple teams that I'm like, I don't know. But I had the Steelers and the Texans at the bottom. Right now, they're obviously just not playing as high quality ball as you would want them to be. It doesn't mean that they're this awful team. Doesn't mean that they're not worthy to be in the playoffs. Doesn't mean that they can't win playoff games. It just means out of all these teams right now, they are clearly not playing the best ball. And they know it themselves. The Steelers know it and the Texans know it, that they have to play better football. Then I have the Broncos, Packers, and Bucks. These are also, my next 2 tiers are 3 wild card. Obviously wild card weekend, but wild card tiers. It's just like the Broncos seemingly are hot and playing great high level football, intense football, going up against the Bengals, which was a high level football game. Make no mistake about it. Bo Nix has really come into his own, and that defense is special and elite. The Packers are low now because of just injuries. I mean, they're just banged up. They're also not playing high quality ball right now. Again, that can't be argued. And now they're dealing with injuries. I don't know what you do with that. And the Bucks, it's so fascinating because on one side, you're like, are the Bucks a great team or are they punching above their weight, right? Like, how are they playing? Because they did almost lose to the Saints. And like Nick kind of said, was like, oh my God, how can this team, is this team really going to blow it and lose to the Saints? So, that can be jarring at times. I was conflicted between putting the Bucks in the next tier or leaving them where they're at. But I think just because of how their season has unfolded, especially with all of their injuries, it just becomes a lot harder to like really have, really have a degree of confidence as to, how great of a team are they. And then that, leads me to the Commanders, Ravens, and Chargers. And I'll start with the Commanders, Rams, and Chargers. Not the Ravens, the Rams. Commanders, Rams, and Chargers. The Rams, similar to the Bucks. It's like, how great are you? You were decimated with injuries. What's going on with Cooper Kupp? I believe in Matthew Stafford, but he's obviously getting older. Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, etc. But because of especially what they've been able to do in the past and how special I do believe Stafford and McVay are together, as well as now adding Puka Nacua, who's pretty much taken over for Cooper Kupp. You're like, that is a special group that, how could you doubt them? And then the Commanders and Chargers, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels. I mean, Jaden Daniels is obviously special. He's obviously special. He is, a rookie. So it's like, I'm not going to 100% guarantee that they're going to have this great success in the playoffs. Like, I could think that the Commanders are a better team than the Bucks and still predict that the Bucks are going to beat the Commanders, because this is a tough spot for the Commanders. Again, rookie quarterback, going, on the road. Like, the deck is stacked against them. The Commanders aren't supposed to win this game, but I do think the Commanders are a really good team and deserving to be up there. And the Chargers are they getting healthy at the right time? You know, who are the Chargers? I obviously really believe in Justin Herbert and Harbaugh, and that defense has been good, but they've also been rocked by the Bucks. Like, they've had a couple wonky games as well, but they were missing their run game. You know, Dobbins is down. I'm pretty sure Ladd missed some games. Like, they were not healthy. They were a little inconsistent, but it's like, have they now kind of got healthy and found their footing at the right time? You know, we'll find out. And then the next tier, who's in a tier of their own, is the Vikings. Now, I then have the Vikings. I'm still a big, firm believer in the Vikings. I do think that it's because they got beaten by the Lions that it makes sense for them to kind of take a step back. But I do firmly believe that they are still a Super Bowl contender and can do it. But I do think like they need to find that next gear. I do not think that they were ready for the Lions game. They did not play as hard and as focused and as ready as, say, the Lions were. And so that's why I think it's fair. Obviously, the Lions beat them, but I don't even look at it through that way. I just don't think that the Vikings were ready for that game. And so that's why I kind of have them just down the one notch. And then the next tier is with all the other teams, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Lions. To me, these are the 5 scariest teams, and for all different reasons. Kansas City Chiefs, what scares me more than anything, is their combination of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Spags. Like, just that trio right there is just really scary, and their level of consistency. You know that the Chiefs are just not going to lay an egg. You know that what are the odds of the Chiefs losing 21-3, and Patrick Mahomes is just like on the sideline chewing his mouthpiece because they're just getting rolled. Like, it just doesn't seem like that's even remotely possible. Whereas these other teams, the next teams, the Bills, Eagles, Ravens, and Lions, it's definitely possible. Not saying that I'm predicting it, but we've seen it happen with those teams where you're just like, ugh, that was a really ugly loss. Like, what was that? We've seen it for all of these teams. But again, what scares me the most for the Bills, it's Josh Allen. Josh Allen's an absolute monster, a superhuman alien monster from another galaxy in an alternate universe. The guy is an absolute freak. Then the Eagles, this roster, top to bottom, I think it's the best roster. I think it's the most stacked. Like, you have to be intimidated by that roster on both offensively and defensively. The Ravens, it's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. It's that combination. It's just that offense as a whole has been just so dangerous and can just pile on the points. Like, if you're going up against the Ravens, like, you are going to be scared of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Like, you are going to be like, oh my God, like, this is what we have to face. And again, when I say fear and stuff like that, I'm talking about from like a fan perspective, like an outside perspective. And then you have the Lions. It's like they just play with such intensity and conviction, and they will always be ready. They will always be ready. They may not win every single game. They may be able to play every perfect game, but they will absolutely ball to they fall. They will go all in, and it is suffocating. You are constantly backed into a corner, and that is exhausting for the opposing team. It just is. We've seen it for the last 2 seasons, but especially this last season. So those are my tiers. That's how I'm seeing it right now. Again, nothing too crazy, I think, and something that I just did real quick, like while this was going on. I'm sure if I redid the list, I could like change things around even more, which is always part of the problem because I could make the argument for so many different things, but that does feel right to me right now. And we will see how it ages. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Nick's tiers for Wild Card Weekend? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.